Good morning, Mr. Trawale.
Morning, Kay.
You're welcome back.
Thank you.
We would like to proceed and Council, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Morning, Chairperson, Commissioners. Mr. Trawale.
Thank you.
I think today I'll wait to check that your laptop is on.
Yes. Week report. Yeah,
Yes?
it's on my laptop.
Okay, great. I'd like to refer you to the Mansa Conco Area Council Management Letter for the audit performed for the year 2017 and 2018. And Chairperson, this is Exhibit ARMAC 001.
You may proceed.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Issues raised in the management letter in writing by 8th October 2019. No response was received by the expiry of that date. An email reminder was sent giving them additional 2 weeks ending 22nd October to respond. And this was also not responded to. So, what did you say? You now have no option but to conclude on the basis of the draft management letter, as no response was received. Did you eventually get a response to the draft?
This was the final. It's in the cover letter, right?
Yes.
Where are you reading from?
Yes, in the cover letter.
In the cover letter.
On the second page of the cover letter.
Yeah. This is the final management, so meaning no management was received. So I just want to go through the report to see if all the point, whether it remains the same.
Okay.
I just want to confirm. I just want to go into detail to see whether something happened later, whether they, just to be sure. So that was the case. There was no management letter because what happened was when we send them the draft, after the field work, we would send them the draft and then to give them the opportunity to respond. And then we would give them a timeline for them to respond. After that, if you don't, we will send you a reminder. If we don't hear from you again, we will send you a second reminder. If we don't hear from you and then no explanation, then we have no option but to finalize based on the draft management letter.
Okay. I refer you to paragraph 2.3 of the letter on the revenue forecasting and planning.
2.3, right?
Yes. You have stated that the council had no realistic way of determining forecasted revenue and that they just increased the amount marginally from the current year to determine future revenue. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, from our review, we found that the council did not avail with database of taxpayers in the region. As such, an accurate basis for determining the potential revenue is not available. The practice we found for the determination of forecast revenue involved marginal increment of current year results to determine future revenue. We also found that all collectible revenue have not been fully realized across all revenue streams. For example, compound rates defaults under collection, but the basis still remain actual collection plus marginal increase. There is also the inclusion of revenue components for which there is no realistic chance of receiving, but continue to be included as receivables. This is in the form of subvention from government, which has not been received for many years. What we're saying is that because you are forecasting the revenue that you're going to receive for the next year, but what we haven't seen the method used in determining that. It's like the amount they've collected for this year, they will just make a marginal increment, and then that will be the basis for coming up with that figure wasn't known. So what the risk is that maybe it might not be realistic. If you look at the implication, the under-collection of revenue coupled with the continued use of comparative years for forecasting revenue may result in undercutting the true revenue potential of the council. And then there were also a lot of areas not being collected, and then they are still including these things in their revenue forecast, plus the subvention that they are expecting from the government. Even though at the time it wasn't forthcoming, but they are still, including it as part of their forecast. But there was no management response to this because they haven't responded.
Yeah. Okay. Paragraph 2.6. You have stated that there are payments amounting to $324,621, which were not acknowledged as received by the payees. And you have stated that the details are contained in Annex 3 to the letter.
Yes. During the review of a sample of payment vouchers, we discovered that a number of payments amounting to $324,621 were not acknowledged as received by the payee. It's just that if you raise a payment voucher, let's say I have paid Mr. Shuanshu, and then there should be an acknowledgement. If it is bank, where that should be signed to confirm that the payment was actually received by the individual. So the implication is that payments not acknowledged cannot be accepted as genuine, and it will be difficult to confirm if the payment is actually received by the recipient. And we recommend that the Director of Finance must ensure that all payments made by the Council are appropriately acknowledged by way of authorized receipts and signature from the recipient of the payment. So, but there was no response. This is what happened. It's like you see a payment to individual, but there is no evidence to show that they've actually received that payment.
And I have noted that there are payments listed under the annex.
Yes.
And some payments are for staff breakfast. I've seen staff breakfast 3,100. There are payments for maintenance of vehicles. There's a lot of payments for fuel. Some are for private vehicles. Some are for the area councils, tractors or cars. And I also see rent. In your experience, is it usual for the council to pay for staff breakfast and rental for, well, I'm assuming the rental are for staff?
No, that's not usual. But around this 2017, 2018, you will see a lot of payments that you cannot, that even they themselves it will be difficult for them to justify. Even the one like fuel to the private vehicle, this was common, and some of these are just ordinary people that will come to the council and they give them fuel. This has been happening a lot at the time. But
I believe I've seen some reports where there were payments to, well, fuel purchases for the governors, etc.
Exactly, yeah. Things like that has been happening a lot right there.
Let me refer you to paragraph 2.12.2 on confirmed staff complement. 2.12.2, so 2.12.2.
Okay.
On confirmed staff complement. You have that you sent a prior request for the staff to turn up for verification because you had received a report of overstaffing by the finance committee of the council, and that most of the staff failed to turn up for verification.
2.1 point?
2.12.2.
Okay, okay, on confirmed staff
Yes.
complement. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, we could not establish the if the staff complement is appropriate, as we have not been able to confirm from audit due to a limitation on scope. Most staff failed to turn up for verification even though we made a prior request. This is in the midst of report of overstaffing by the finance committee of the council, with reports of employee on the payroll but who never turned up for work. Because if you look at the payroll, you see a lot of names on the staff. By then we used to spend about 3 weeks at the council, and then you will see only few staff around. So we called, because some of them they will say they will be at the Lumos or other stations, and then we requested for a sample of staff, for them to come over for verification. But you still have names that has never turned up for that verification. So as auditors, we cannot confirm if these are actually bona fide staff. And then the finance committee, we reviewed their minutes, their reports, and that indicated that there's overstaff at the council at the time. So implication, where relevant documents such as birth certificate letters are not present to the personnel files might lead to difficulty in determining this employee. And then there was no management response for this particular finding, because that's what happened.
Did you have an exit meeting for this council? I mean, is this something that came up during the discussions at the exit meeting?
Yes, because all these findings at the end of the field work, before we come back to the office, we will have an exit meeting, and then we'll take them through on each and every query that's on this route. So if they have any question or anything that is not clear, they are given the opportunity to ask, and then we provide the explanation, just to make sure that when we send our draft, they will be able to respond quickly, because by then at least we've already discussed and they have a better understanding of the issues. So we actually had the exit meeting.
Okay. 2.13 on the payment of collection. Can you take us through this?
Yes. Examination of these GTRs against the collector's cash book revealed that collection amounting to 32,945 for the period under review was not paid by the underlisted collector. The audit also noted that expenditure amounting to 16,000 was made by the said collector out of the revenue collected by completing payment vouchers. And these payment vouchers were authorized by the CEO. Out of the unpaid revenue collected, with 32,945, only 16,000 was spent, leaving an outstanding balance of 16,945 unpaid. It collected the revenue of 32,945 according to the receipts, but this has not been entered in the cash book. And then again, another money, out of that money also, we've seen that 16,000 was paid, a payment voucher was raised, but not signed by the Director of Finance, but only the CEO signed, and then paid 16,000 from that collection, and then the remaining balance was not accounted for.
Because that's what I was going to ask. I note that you have said it was authorized by the CEO, so that means that the Director of Finance did not.
Did not, because it should be, in fact, the Director of Finance should authorize, and then the CEO, then both of them should authorize, but only been authorized by the CEO and the Director of Finance.
And did this issue come up at the exit meeting?
Yes, all these things have been discussed.
And so at the exit meeting, do they actually try to talk about these issues then, or is it just that you explain what you need and
I think
await the responses?
Yeah, I think by then the Director of Finance there by then just left. I think he reached his retirement or something like. We didn't meet him at the council. He just newly left.
Okay.
But I think when he was leaving also, the relationship was in cordial, so there was no proper handing over. So I think prior to his departure, the relationship was in cordial. So it's like they were he and the CEO were not in good, so that's what created most of these things. Yeah.
All right. Let's look at the audit of Mansafonko Area Council for the period 1st January 2019 to 31st December 2019.
I'm there.
You gave an adverse opinion for the council for this year.
Yes.
Okay. And the basis for the adverse opinion?
The adverse opinion, that means the accounts were not true and fair for the period 1st January to 31st December 2019. And the reason for that adverse opinion was, one, the framework and accounting policy adopted. The council did not state the accounting policy it adopted and followed for the treatment and reporting of its transaction. It was not apparent for the review of the statement which policies were followed, because if you are preparing your financial statement, you need to show what basis you are using to prepare that financial statement. So auditors will now evaluate that financial statement based on that accounting policy. So this was lacking. No information on assets and liabilities. The financial and accounting manual for local government authorities require the preparation of a balance sheet. This may not be practicable given the basis of accounting followed by the council, cash basis. However, strongly recommend disclosure of information on about the assets and liabilities, and this wasn't done. If you look at the councils, according to their manual, their balance sheets the fixed assets will not be there because they operate on a cash basis, but there should be an asset register, and then the disclosure of the value of the assets should be, and this wasn't done. Disagreement between primary books and journal balances. The cash book balance for the relevant account had huge difference with the corresponding code in the ledgers. There was a cumulative deficit variance of 618,000 and cumulative surplus variance of 125 respectively. This difference remained unexplained. And then the fourth point was this agreement between the ledgers and the trial balance. There were a huge difference between most account balances in the ledgers with corresponding balance in the trial balance. Up to 9,127,000 and 11,786 for the revenue and expenditure respectively existed. This too was not explained. These are the reasons. This too was not explained. These are the reasons. Why the order?
Paragraph. Paragraph 1.4.
The act from the according to the local Government Act, these committees need to be established, and then during our audit, we reviewed the minutes of the subcommittee and noted that there were no minutes on file for establishment and development committee from 2019 to date. there was only 1 minute for the finance committee during 2020 and none for 2019. We did not have any other evidence regarding the functioning of this committee. But no minute for the other subcommittee. For finance committee, there was only 1 committee. So as auditors, other minute filed, which were all single minutes, including meetings for education and agriculture, but the rest there was no minutes. So if there is no minute, there is no evidence that they are meeting. And as you've mentioned yesterday, the sitting allowances, I think the minutes of the meeting should be part of the supporting documents for the payment of their sitting allowances. And 2, we also know that the council did not co-opted any member with the technical expertise, even though it was apparent that the majority of the elected councillors did not possess required skill and experience in the respective discipline. There are these subcommittees. If you look at them, the composition of the subcommittees, for example, finance, you will see that there is nobody, no evidence that any one of them has that basic finance background. And then according to this, you can bring somebody, an expert, just to be given, but there is no evidence of that. And 3, there is also no evidence of the oversight role of the General Council over the management in terms of the direction and supervision. It also did not establish an audit committee within the General Council to serve as the interest of the internal audit function. And then the councillors also, because the council as a body also had that oversight function over the management, but there was no evidence of that and no audit committee at the time. So General Council, through the chairperson, is going to assume its full responsibilities as outlined in the below. Yeah. This one is 2019. Remember, this one they've responded.
Yes.
The previous one, yeah. So they said all meeting minutes must be filled in their various files. However, it is well noted that management will make sure that all minutes are filed accordingly. Auditors are saying the findings relating to points 2 and 3 are not addressed by the management response. Management attention is again drawn to them as they are key requirement for the effective functioning of the council. They said all minutes now will be filled and then filed. Okay. But the composition of the committees, they haven't mentioned anything on that. Yeah.
I just wanted to find out, you have said previously that sometimes you interview the councillors?
Yes.
Now, in your general interview of councillors throughout the councils, but in this case more specifically for this area council, do you get the impression that the councillors actually are aware of what their roles and their functions are in the council?
Yes, recently, and then especially this particular council, Mansa Konko, they have a councillor during our interview, because the minutes found, we were just going through it, and then we realized that they actually come up. They are even putting a pressure on management at some point to make sure that those cashiers found wanting and action is taken. And then we invited him, that particular councillor, and then he was able to, he has the understanding, very good understanding. I think he was the head of the finance committee. So now, not all the councils, but you have some councils whereby you can get very good information from councillors. But that happened in Mansa Konko, Basse, and Janjambure. I think these 3 councils, we are able to get very good.
17 and 2018.
Mm-hmm.
We did notice that there were a huge number of, let me just refer you to the annexure 4.0, that is Annex 1.
Mm-hmm.
There are a huge number of unposted payments that you listed. Apparently, it made half of the document.
Yeah.
So, can you shed light on this for us?
Yes, these unposted payments were, as a result of payments are done, but they are not recorded in the cash book. They are not recorded in the cash book. So, what made this difficult was when we were there, the director of finance who was there just left, and then new director of finance took over, but was very recent, was very new at the time, and then there was no formal handing over. So if you ask the current management, they were like, all of this, they were like, yes, we will, let's with the former director of finance to come and then work on these things. And then after the audit also, there was no response. If at all they've responded, at least we will have a feeling of what actually happened, but that has never happened. So this on process is happening. Payments were raised, and then that's why you even see payments being authorized by only the CEO. Maybe the director of finance can say, yes, I was bypassed, the CEO signed, I haven't signed, then I don't want to be part of it. These are the reasons, why you have this series of unposted transactions.
Thank you. And let me just also refer you to your findings, where you stated that you noted that the vouchers not signed by the finance director have not been posted to the cash book up to the time of your review. These payments were mainly incurred by the revenue collectors. My issue here is the revenue collectors, directly from their collection. They were all retrospectively signed by the CEO. What is the implication of that?
Yeah, the implication is a violation of the financial regulation and internal control, because all payments, in fact, no payment should have taken place without being authorized. And then to be authorized, it still comes back to the revenue collector doesn't have any responsibility collecting revenue. They are revenue collectors. They are not payment officers. So for them, your responsibility is to collect the revenue and bring it to the council. You bank it or you pay it to the treasurer. So it's the responsibility of the finance team, the management, if there is any payment, for a request to be made, payment voucher to be raised, authorized by the finance director, because the finance director is the custodian of the finance. He has that responsibility to advise the management about the finance, any transaction as far as finance is concerned. So if these payments are done by collectors, so that's the reason why it's a serious violation. That's why you cannot have any proper bank reconciliation. You cannot prepare any financial statement, because you are just spending and then they are not following the procedures, and then you cannot even track the spending pattern for that period.
That takes me further to the issue of an example of a councillor, which is an elected official, was found to be collecting revenue for council, and that a number of revenue collectors have been incurring expenditure on collections, apparently unaware that it was inappropriate. What can you tell us with respect to that?
Yeah. Let me go back to the report. I know I can remember, but let me just go back to that report. Which page is it? Can you help me with it?
This is the management letter, audit performed 2017-2018.
I mean the page.
Yes, the page. This is not.
Is it
there's no page number, but then the heading is Code of Conduct and Standard Practice. That is 2.2. And under that you have finding, that is the third paragraph under that finding.
Sorry, I just want to go to that. 2.2, right?
Yes.
Okay, Code of Conduct, finding. On the paragraph, you say it? Okay, the third one. We
yes.
also found staff engaged in, is that the thing?
Yes.
Okay, We also found staff engaged in an appropriate practice which are clearly prohibited by the regulation. For example, a councillor was found to be collecting revenue for council, which clearly violate the Local Government Act. We also noted that a number of revenue collectors have been incurring expenditure on collections, apparently unaware that it was inappropriate. Yeah, what we are trying to do, there was no management response to this, but this is a councillor, I think in Bureng, who was collecting revenue on behalf of the council, and then she is not, and the councillor is not a revenue collector. We flag it, and then again, these collectors also, just as we mentioned, they were collecting revenue according to them, because our interview with them, they will be like, I collected this, but the CEO or Mr. So-and-so called me, asked me to buy this or to spend it on this. So the reason why we say code of conduct and standard practice, because some of these revenue collectors, they don't even know the implication of this. And even that particular councillor collecting this doesn't know the implication of these things happening. If you have that interview with them, they will like, for them it's like, the CEO called me, so they think that that is an enough reason for them to use that money and then spend without any evidence or any request. So we bring it to their attention, the implication, and then the risk. So that's the time some of them realize the seriousness of what they were doing. But this way has stopped in the subsequent audit.
Are you saying in the 2019, 2020?
2020, it has stopped. Yeah, like the councillors collecting revenue, and then it was only one councillor. Okay. And then even after the interview, you can see that, oh, that's the time the particular councillor realized, the seriousness of what he was
yes.
doing.
This kind of scenario, do you see it occurring in other councils?
Yeah, collectors collecting money and spending it, that was very common. That was very common, especially in the rural councils. This wasn't very common in Banjul and KMC at the time, because maybe, I don't know, but for the rural council it was very, very common. And then I think what also led to that was like, because you have some of these councils, just as I've mentioned, you will go to councils, you will find the staff works only on Lumo days. These are permanent staff, but they don't even come to the council. When the Lumos is on Wednesday, you go to the Lumo on Wednesday, the money you collect, you keep it. So maybe if there is any spending, the management, the CEO or the finance director will just call you, buy this thing, and then the money you collect, you just spend it. So without any, any documentation. So that's why it was common at the rural councils. Yeah.
And there is no evidence from the supervisory institutions for this sort of things being taken care of. You've not come across any documentation or instructions or directives to remedy these situations?
Oh, no, I haven't. I think the only supervisory report that I always try to recollect this report. The ministry is about the BCC. Immediately after the change of government, there's this report. I think I can't recall the document. It was a bulky report about it was sort of an investigation at the ministry. That was the only supervisory report for BCC 2017, 2018.
Can you avail this commission, that document?
Yes, I will try to find out. We don't have the copy, but it was at the ministry, at the council burden, so we even used to go through that, review it, and then try to see whether there are actions there. But that was around 2017, 2018. Yeah. Yes. But apart from that, you don't come across any supervisory report from the oversight for the period. Yeah.
Thank you. Council, you can proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Travali, I refer you to page 8 of the report.
Page 8, okay.
Paragraph 1.5, sustainability of services.
Page 8, right? Let me just go back to that report. So I have to go back.
You have said in your finding that during your planning assessment, you noted the following concerns. One, the 3 revenue components of billboard fees, hotel, lodge license, and car park fees were transferred from the council's control to National Roads Authority, Gambia Tourism Board, and Gambia Revenue Authority, respectively. And you also said that the grants payable to the council from the government had not been received by council in accordance with the Local Government Finance and Audit Act, and that is up to 10% of the council's capital budget. And 3, you said general low rates of taxes collected by the council, barely sufficient to implement planned activities.
Yes. This is the sustainability of the service. During our planning assessment, we noted the following going concern issues. The 3 revenue components of billboard fees, hotel lodge, Lansing car park fees were transferred from the council to NRA, GT board, and GRA. Grant payable to the council from the government has not been received by the council in accordance with Local Government Finance and Audit Act, after 10% of council's capital budget. General low rates of taxes collected by the council barely sufficient to implement the planned activities. Here we are only concerned about the sustainability of the councils, but this revenue stream and then this grant from the government, and then the amount of rates that they are collecting, whether if they will be able to provide any service for the public. And then the implication was there is a risk of the council not meeting its development objectives due to reduced revenue base resulting from the withdrawal of revenue components. The same is true for the non-receipt of grants from the government. Low rates of taxes also have a similar effect on the revenue. And then the recommendation, our recommendation here, we recommend that council, through the general council, take up the matter of the withdrawal revenue stream with the relevant authorities with a view to having the restore. A similar approach should be pursued with the government through the relevant ministries to facilitate the execution of this grant. The council, through the stakeholders concerned, is also owed to initiate the process of reviewing the current rate of tax levied with a view to upgrading to meet the needs of the council. Management response, they say, my council have agreed on a meeting at the ministry, and we have finally accepted that the revenue items which were taken from council to be left with those departments to continue collecting them. However, with the intervention of the GALGA, there is an upgrading of the property rates and taxes and the business lancing tariff, which are on the process of being gazetted for the local government use. This was the response from the management, meaning they had a meeting with the ministry, but they said let them leave it with them to collect.
Now, you have said that, well, the issues that you have raised are that it is not likely that the council will be able to carry out its development plans. But from looking at everything for that period holistically, do you think they were even able to manage to just pay salaries and just to operate?
Yes, I think that has been the issue. If you look at the council, the money collected is just collected and spent. You just collect and spend, that is it. And even struggle to pay the staff's salary. That is why you will see revenue collectors collecting revenue. What you collect, you keep it, and that's why you use to pay your salary.
Sure. Yes. During the period under review, was collectible revenues realized across the revenue streams from say 2018 to 2021 for this particular council?
I don't get it. The collectible revenue.
As I said, during the period under review, it's a general question.
Yes,
I'm not
okay.
being specific as to.
Okay.
So your understanding, based on the findings, is that during the period under review, was collectible revenue realized across the revenue streams?
Oh no, that's why you have a lot of areas of rates and taxes and other revenue. Because even if you look at our for this particular council, we are even like the revenue stream is very low because they don't even have a database of institutions or rates to be collected. So that's why even if you look at their revenue, the forecast compared to what has been collected is very low.
Yes. In further to that, so in terms of the budget, inclusion of uncollectible and or non-receivable elements into the budget, what risk does it pose?
Yeah, because the reason why we flag
in terms of revenue generation and
yes, because at least the budget is not just to say just to put figures, but it needs to be realistic. At least it needs to be, you know, because it's a plan, but in preparing it you have to put realistic assumptions in place. Then if you see that this particular revenue line has not been coming, we've not been collecting it, and you still, you know, putting it in your budget, in your forecast, that means you are inflating.
What example can you give?
I think in this example, well, I have to go back to the report because I know we mentioned a particular rate. For example, we are like the 25% grant from the government.
The 40-60%.
Yeah, from the government is always included in the budget, but it has not been forthcoming. Because we flag this in so that at least let it be realistic, because we believe these are part of our audit recommendations. So something needs to be, they must reach an agreement, you know, that no, the government will not continue because you are not preparing a credible financial statement, or you are not using the money under we are not, so that at least it will not be part of your budget. At least whatever will be in your budget will be realistic. These are things that you are sure of collecting, even if there will be any variance, but it will be reasonable.
Now, do you think it is fair for government not to pay its own subvention, mainly because they cannot produce financial statements?
That is just, I'm just using that one because I didn't get any formal response that government is not doing that one because they are not preparing credible financial statement. This is just a part of the discussions or whatever. That you are not preparing financial statement. How can we even determine, you know, the amount spent on development and the likes? But I haven't received any formal, you know, response that was the reason. That was the reason. For us, it's in the law, and then we are just flagging it out for the stakeholders to know. So how they are to go about that one, that is beyond us.
Yeah. Yeah. So is it also not true that it is the responsibility of the oversight institutions to make sure that these councils are properly staffed and with efficient personnel in order for them to be able to execute their jobs as required under the Act?
That's correct. That's why anything that has to do with those things, in our recommendation, we will say the council will, through the relevant ministry or the relevant stakeholders, need
and
to
in this
work
case,
on
and in this case, it is the Ministry of Local Government and Lands. Am I correct?
Most of that we will not even say with the local government and land, we will say with the relevant ministry, so which is obvious, because I know maybe we don't want to limit it. Ministry of Local Government and Land, maybe they might also be working with the Ministry of Finance or where, so we don't want to be specific. That's why we say with the relevant ministry to make sure that.
But that is the overall. That's the parent ministry that has direct supervisory role.
Exactly.
So before another stakeholder comes in, everything passes through the ministry.
Yeah, that's obvious. You know, that one in our this thing is, because what I'm trying to say, when we said with the relevant ministry or with the relevant stakeholders, that those stakeholders will know whom they're supposed to work with to make sure that these things are regularized. Yeah.
Thank you. Council, you can proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Chawali, I'm not sure whether you've conducted another audit exercise after this 2019 for
Mansa Congo. 2020, 2021 is the draft is sent. They are yet to respond.
Okay. Yeah. But you were involved in that audit.
Yes.
So do you think this issue of sustainability of services has improved?
For the 2020, 2021, it's at the draft, so I wouldn't.
No. So that's why I'm not asking about the report.
Okay.
But do you think that just from doing your assessment before drafting, do you think that the issue of sustainability of services has improved?
I would not be able, because I know these revenue streams are still with the stakeholder. They are not back at the council.
Yes.
So that's still the case. So,
but in terms of the council's own mandated revenue collection, so rates and taxes, is it better?
Right now, because the financial statement for that council, up to the time of drafting, after the time of sending the draft, the financial statement for 2020-2021 was not submitted to the audit team. So we sent the draft requesting that their financial statement need to be sent before we finalize it. So I don't have the access to the financial statement of the. So we hoping if they are responding, they're going to send the final, even though that's not the right way of doing it, but we are still flexible for them to give them the opportunity before finalizing the report. If they submit the financial, we review it and then consider it.
Yes. How soon do you think you would get the draft? And if the draft is available, can we have the draft and know maybe perhaps when you will receive the final response to your draft?
Yes, I think because the draft we gave them 1 month. I can't remember the actual date given, but this was 2 weeks ago. So I think mid-June we expecting to get their response by mid-June. Yeah, by mid-June or earlier than that. I can't remember the actual date put on the draft for them to respond. So when they respond, we will evaluate their response and finalize the report. You know, to share the draft is risky because it's still a working document, a lot of changes, a lot of adjustments. So yeah.
Okay, we appreciate that.
Yeah,
so we will appreciate if the final document, if it is done, let us be availed.
Yeah, we will
copy,
do that.
please. Thank you.
Mr. Charlie, let's look at page 18 of the report. There's an issue of unposted collections. And the collector name is the Director of Finance.
Unposted, right?
Yes, unposted collections.
Okay.
Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, examination of Director of Finance GTR against the main cash book revealed an amount of 27,800 not posted in the main cash book. Details are shown below. Implication, there is a risk of the unposted amount which will result in suppression of revenue. The amount may also have been diverted from the council which contravene the policy. We recommend that the Director of Finance investigate and provide evidence of the amount in question. This evidence should be presented to us. And they've responded, meaning the GTR, the receipt book that the Director of Finance supposed to issue to the collectors was used to collect this amount. And then they responded to say the amount has been confirmed as unposted receipt numbers. However, it has been accepted by the then Director of Finance, who accepted this as an undertaking to be deducted from his gratuity payment. Auditors further comment, this practice highlights weak internal control within the council, which needs to be addressed going forward. Evidence of deductions made to the gratuity payment as highlighted in the response should be presented for our review. So they were like, yes, this happened. Money has been collected, not posted. But they agreed that the Director of Finance retired and they're going to recover this money from his gratuity when paying his benefit.
Now, is it usual for the Director of Finance to even be collecting funds at all for the council?
No, that's why I said it's a weak internal control weakness, because that's not his responsibility.
And do you think that is sufficient for the loss to the council to just be deducted from his gratuity?
I think maybe they just that's the only option available, but that's not the right thing.
Also, do you know whether he was moved to another council or
no? He retired.
He retired. Okay.
He retired. Yeah.
Right.
But all this thing was caused by the relationship before he left. So that's right.
Can we look at page 25?
Yeah.
This is in respect of the incomplete establishment register.
Yeah.
Are these the staff that did not show up for the verification?
This is each and every staff. This is incomplete establishment register. This register that has to show each and every staff your name, when were you appointed, your grade, your position, because this is just to show the staff complement of the council. And then that register has some deficiencies, so that's what the auditors are trying to flag in the table. So if you look at the remark column, each and every staff, the issue has been explained in the column, in the remark column.
So, okay, you have stated that from number 3 to 15 are not listed in the establishment register. So where do you get their details? Is there a payroll register?
It's from the establishment register is there, but it is not accurate. That's why I say incomplete.
Yeah.
For example, if you look at the first one, it's on grade 3.7 is a security officer, and then the remark they're saying it is stated as Keba Landing Jaite in his file, while Landing Jaite in the establishment register, no birth certificate in his file. Because the reason why we flag these things, if in the payroll it is written as Landing Jaite, and then you go to your file, it is Keba Landing Jaite, and then you don't have any birth certificate in the file. Some of these things, when you reach your retirement benefit, if they are to compute your retirement benefit, you have issue. Because they can, this is why you will see people be retired for 2 years, they cannot get there because they will say no, but here is Keba Landing Jaite and here is Landing Jaite. So some of these things need, so that's why we always bring it to their attention for them to be regularized. Yeah. And then the second one, for example, Sunkari Sabali, health laborer, it is stated as Sunkari in the establishment register, but his appointment letter is Sankung. Only ID card is attached to his file. So these are if I'm Sunkari in my this and then the other one is Sankung, I can say no, I'm not Sankung, I'm Sunkari, things like that. So these are internal control weaknesses that definitely needs to, yeah.
So number 3 to 15, that's what I'm saying. So their names are not in the establishment register,
yes,
but their names are somewhere
name is
else.
not listed in the establishment register. Well, that one is procurement officer. And number 3, for example, the grade point is not stated, and his name is not listed in the establishment register. So if your name is on the payroll, you go to the establishment. That's the master file. Okay. You know, it's not there. So meaning there are a lot of gaps as far as.
Thank you. Page 26, paragraph 2.11, GTR used for deduction. You have stated that you note from your review of the sample GTRs that the council uses GTRs to administer deductions of 1/6 loans issued to staff. Can you talk us through what exactly you mean?
On GTRs used for the deduction of 1/6, for example, the implication will overstay the revenue recorded in the cash book and revenue balance in the financial statement. For them, they are responsible. For us, our recommendation, we say we urge management of the council to ensure that revenue earning books are exclusively utilized for revenue collection. The accounts affected by the 1/6 payment should be revised accordingly to reflect the accurate balance. They responded to say management have strongly informed the Director of Finance to be aware that GTR books are exclusively utilized for revenue collection and not for deduction. So for them, I don't even know, because the GTR, these are general certificate receipts. These are used, the objective of these is to collect revenue. Then if 1/6 is given to staff, and then you are giving these things to those who paid were 1/6, giving these receipt books, meaning if you go to the receipt book, it is issued, but not to collect any revenue. Which is it's like you are using it for a purpose that is not supposed to be. So the accountability of those receipt books
issued to staff for paying their 1/6 will be difficult. So you are just overstating the revenue just by receiving without any physical money coming in. So they said it has been strongly this thing. Some of these things will be like, one council is doing it, somebody is doing it at the council, and then you also came as the director of finance, and then you also start doing the same plan without even you don't even know what you're doing. So some of these, and that is it. If one council is doing it, you will see that it would be a practice for all the councils. So whether it's the right thing or not, they just keep doing it. But it stops now. It stops now.
Okay, council. Yeah. Yes. Further to that, Annex 2. Can you explain, for the understanding of the Commission, the missing payment vouchers? We can see under that annex a series of numbers which represent the voucher.
For 2018. But we have a management letter for 2018. But it's ARBAC 002.
Okay.
Yes.
Then, would you deal with the management after the audit, the management letter?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, you want me to proceed?
Yes, please.
Yes. Adverse opinion. Just as I rightly said, this is just to say the accounts are not true and fair, and the no much difference between it and the disclaimer. Because for me, if you give me adverse opinion, I may even prefer that than giving me a disclaimer. Because adverse, I'm able to verify the figures and the treatments, but disclaimer is like I'm limited. I don't know the magnitude of the omission. So they are all negative reports, but I think, but that's just at personal level. I would say I prefer to be given adverse than auditors saying a disclaimer, but that's just at personal level. Basis for adverse opinion, the general ledger accounts presented had no names. We could not therefore trace or to the trial balance. The general ledger, because this one should guide you, the postings, the balances. This is the rates, this is the trade lancing, this is from this board. Those accounts names were missing, so the auditors cannot verify the sources of those figures. Misclassification. Expenditure amounting to 15,380,000, representing the current, but we are only classified as capital expenditure. That was also about 15 million. There are treatments, expenditure lines that were classified as capital expenditures when they are recurrent in nature. That's misclassification from postings. On presented deposit slip, deposits amounting to 44 million and 29,746.76 were posted to the cash book, but the evidence of the deposit was not presented for review. These were recorded in the cash book, but there was no evidence that they have been deposited at the bank. On presented payment vouchers, supporting document for payment vouchers amounting to 1,364,412.66 processed during the period under review have not been presented for review. Trial balance, there was a deficit current asset balance of 618,215.71 in the trial balance, which was significantly different. The report current asset balance of 3,003,539 in the balance sheet. Then a variant of 3,621,755, and management did not address the issue until the finalization of the report. Long-term liabilities were listed as a negative number in the trial balance of 2,332,725. The component long-term liability was not present in the balance sheet. Bank overdraft of 3,621,755.50 was reported in the balance sheet but not in the trial balance. Accumulated funds has been reported as a negative number, minus 2,711,149, later revised to minus 2,332,735 in the face of the statement on the balance sheet. No reason was given. Capital expenditure of 8,621,167.48 listed in the trial balance is a combination of different capital expenditure accounts which cannot be seen in the trial balance. Financial statement. The accumulated fund shows a negative balance of 2,711,149 on the face of the financial position. These were some of the reasons, wrong treatments, that made the auditors to come up with a conclusion that the financial statement for the period 2019 was not true and fair.
You have, well, read through and you've brought up the issue of some payments being in the balance sheet and not in the trial balance, or the other way around. Can you tell us what the relationship between the balance sheet and the trial balance is?
Yes, you know, balance sheet is among the financial statement is a general financial statement comprised of income and expenditure. Balance sheet, income and expenditure, that's where you record your revenue and expenditures. Balance sheet is where you record your assets and liabilities. If it is other institutions, depending on your policy, you have a cash flow statement. But for the council, because they are operating on a cash basis, cash flow statement is not very relevant, it's not required. So it's just the income and expenditure and the balance sheet. The balance sheet is where you have the assets and liabilities. For councils, according to their manuals, their assets are the bank balances, the receivable, that's the debtors, and then the bank, and then the actual cash. And then their assets, the physical assets, let's say the fixed assets, motor vehicles and the likes, those ones are not recognized in their finance, in their balance sheet. Instead, you have a fixed asset register. But this is just according to their manual. So the combination of the balance sheet is some of the set of financial statement to be produced. Then, this income and expenditure or the balance sheet, for you to prepare it, is just a matter of taking it from these records, source document, let's say from the card book, the general ledgers, and the trial balance. The trial balance is this just the balances. If you set assets, they are in this. They are the debit side with their amount. Liabilities at this side. Bank balance at this side. So the trial balance is just the accounts and their balances and their entry. So if you are preparing your financial statement, that is the source of information that you use to build your financial your balance sheet, your financial statement. It's like it's the source document where you just pick and then fix it in your balance sheet. So at least there should be that direct relationship.
Thank you.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Yes,
there?
Of course.
If you say that the adverse findings for the Brikama Area Council is as a result of the presented documents, what is the effect of the wrong input of postings in the ledger? What is the effect of that?
Can you say that again?
What is the effect of wrongly posting data into the ledger?
Well, it will not be balanced. Because you know, in accounting is like in the ledger, each and every transactions, in recording transactions, you have to follow the principles. You have to follow the principles. You either get it right or you get it wrong. If you don't follow the principles, you record it at a place where it is not supposed to, you can never get it. It will wait for you in time of preparing your financial statement. Your financial statement will never balance the figures, there will be variances, and you will not be able to explain. So at the end, your financial statement will never balance, and then it will end up leading to untrue and fair. What I'm trying to say, any transaction, any single transaction from day one, there is a place where it should be recorded. So ledgers, you don't even start with ledger. Even before the ledgers, there are other books that you need to be recording correctly. At the end of the day, you took those balances and then transfer them to the ledgers. So if you put those balances, record those balances in the ledgers wrongly, because you also use those balances in the ledgers to build your financial statement. So if those records in the ledgers are recorded wrongly, then it will have an impact, because it's like you are taking a wrong figure or a wrong treatment into the financial statement. So at the end of the day, when you just build your financial statement, you will be like, people will ask you questions and it will not balance, and then you will not even be able to explain.
Now, what is the quantum of wrong entry when it comes to the financial statements of the council in Brikama?
You say, what is the
quantum of the wrong inputs into the ledger?
When you come to the, I don't know, maybe the approach, yeah, but I understand. Because for us, as I said, audit is based on sampling. And then we look at the omissions, the wrong misclass, the wrong postings, the overstatement, and then we will look at the how significant. This one, is it just one portion? There are certain wrong postings or certain omissions. They have an impact on almost all the balances in the financial statement. That's what you call is material and pervasive. You might have certain issues.
Yes, sorry to interrupt you. So, in fact, you are getting there. My question is bordered around that. Whether it was pervasive or whether it was, you understand, not too significant.
It was.
Because my question is leading me to another question, which is to say, was it because of the incompetence or the lack of experience of the finance person for that to have happened in terms of what we see in the documents?
It's pervasive in the sense that because all the various codes are recorded in the ledgers, and then those are the balances that you need to build your financial statement. So if there is issue on that source document, so it is pervasive. It will affect all the balances that you need to build your financial statement. And then again, to say whether it's the incompetency of the finance directors or whatever, I don't like to personalize issues, but just to say, it's the responsibility of the management of the Brikama Area Council to prepare and submit a true and fair financial statement that will show a true and fair view. So it's the responsibility of the management as a whole. The CEO, the finance director, they have a management team. So that's why you don't just, because it's the responsibility of the management to make sure that the finance director or whoever is responsible does whatever he or she is supposed to do, and that as far as we are concerned is the management of Brikama Area Council.
Thank you. Council?
Thank you. Can I refer you to the management letter for Brikama Area Council? I believe page 3 of the management letter, which deals with the weak governance structure.
Okay. Page 3, right?
Page 3.
Yes. Weak governance structure, yes.
Yes. And in your finding, you have stated that your audit established that a general council exists, headed by the chairman, as required by the Act, and that it is comprised of 11 subcommittees, each tasked with an area of responsibility. And your assessment is that some of the committees have not been functional. Then you specifically spoke of the finance subcommittee, and that none of the members of the subcommittee has a finance background.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what the implication of this would be in terms of carrying out any duties that relate to financial advisory matters?
Yes, this is from their regulation, which we have cited above. And then during our assessment, we reviewed that some of the committees have not been functional. We did not also find evidence to suggest that the selection of the subcommittees was informed by a position of skills or requisite. And then for example, none of the members of the finance subcommittee has any finance background, and all of the instituted subcommittees, only the market subcommittee submitted minutes for our review during the audit. The chairman confirmed that the proposed inclusion of the non-council co-opted members with relevant skill has not yet materialized, citing lack of quorum to make such decisions. What happened was the councillors, the chairperson and the councillors serve as an oversight on management. Management is the CEO, his finance directors, and his directors. So the chairman and the councillors serve as an oversight. So in doing that, according to the Local Government Act, there must be subcommittees, finance, establishment, and whatever, education, agriculture, and etc. So in finance committee, we look at the composition of the finance committee, for example, but there is nobody there with a finance background. And then if you have a finance committee, because usually they should even help the management on this audit report. You know, they should even put pressure on the management. This treatment, we should make sure that before the next audit, this action is taken, these things are implemented. They should be given that oversight to the management. But if you don't have anybody with a background, finance background, then that can affect the effectiveness of the committee. Then the chairman, because if we are at the council, we give opportunity to everybody. Even the councillors, the chairperson. Then our interaction with the chairman, he said they are aware of this and they want to co-opt some people with finance background, but they don't have the quorum to take that decision. And management response, management said, as per ministerial directive dated January 2020, subcommittees are required to hold a maximum number of 2 sittings in a month. Likewise, the General Council is duly adhering to Section 28(1) of the Local Government Act 2002 by convening a general sitting at least once every month. A well-established criteria is fundamental to the effective functioning of the subcommittee. We will co-opt members whose contributions are deemed necessary in line with the Section 34 of the Local Government Act 2002. These measures will ensure the effective operation of the subcommittees. This was their response, and then action to be taken is the inclusion of co-opted members. It's like they are agreeing, and then they are agreeing that they will make sure that at least some people are co-opted into a finance committee to give support to them.
Are you able to remember whether the director of finance was part of that committee? The finance subcommittee.
I can't remember, but you know the director of finance is part of the management.
Yes, but
responsible. Yeah, so this is an oversight institution. Maybe
I believe the Act also requires that the director of finance be on that committee, which is why I'm trying to find out whether you recall that he was part of that committee at all, or was it just, for your audit purposes, was it just the councillors that you looked at?
Yes, I know if the audit team, the name submitted to the audit team, if the director of finance is there, I believe the audit team will not say there is no member in that committee without a finance background.
Unless the director doesn't actually have finance qualifications.
And I know the director has a finance background, at least.
Okay. Thank you. Let me refer you to pages 10 and 11. In respect of the improper payment voucher filling, can you run us through that?
Improper payment voucher
filling.
filing.
I'm not sure if it's filing or filling.
Oh, maybe it should be filing. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Can you take us through that, please?
Yeah, during our review of the sample payment, we noted the following irregularities. Payment vouchers were not filed chronologically, causing problem for tracing our sample to the voucher file. Most vouchers from our sample were missing from the voucher files and were therefore not tested. we could not find any traceable reference between the voucher entries in the cash book and the related physical payment voucher. What happened was vouchers should be, this is a regulation, if you raise any payment voucher, they should be numbered and they should be dated and filed according to their numbers. Let's say payment voucher 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But according to the auditors, they are not filed in that way, which makes it difficult for them to trace, because you don't check each and every all the vouchers. You will just run a sample and then you ask for the vouchers randomly. So if vouchers are not filed accordingly, then there is high chances that some of the vouchers might not be traced, and that's what happened. And then they say most of the vouchers were missing. It's like the request they sent, I need voucher number 10, 5, 8, 7. Most of them were not submitted to the audit team for them to be able to conduct their testing. So, and then the implication is that there is a risk that such payments may not be accounted for in the book, since they are not received and reviewed. Such payments may not be bona fide payments charged to the council. And management response, the visit by the audit team coincided with the visit of GPPA, compliance review team. Therefore, all vouchers could not be readily available to both teams and at the same time. The vouchers are traced as stated in Annex 1. These vouchers are available for your inspection. And the auditors further comment, contrary to the management response, only a few payment vouchers have been presented to us with the response. This reduced the total unpresented vouchers from 1,613,021.54 to 1,036,412. The revised table is shown below. So these vouchers, most of them were not seen, and then the management said yes, it coincided with the GPPA's audit, and then that's why most of these vouchers were not provided. But the auditors are saying after that only few vouchers were submitted, later submitted, and they reviewed. So the figure for unpresented vouchers reduced from 1.6 million to 1,036,000.
Thank you. And the payments listed in Annex 1 are the missing payment vouchers?
Yes, yes.
But in these cases, so the payment voucher numbers and the details are recorded somewhere,
yes,
even though the vouchers themselves are not there. Where are they recorded?
They should be recorded in the cash book. You can see, because that means they've seen that recorded in the cash book. That's why they were able to give them those numbers. But the physical payment voucher is what has not been submitted.
Okay. I refer you to page 19. There's a finding that the treasurers are using the GTRs to collect trade license.
Page 19, right?
19, yes.
Yes.
And you have said that the implication is that there's a risk that the used GTRs might not be accounted.
Treasurers GTR used for collecting trade license?
Yes. And yes, the implication is that there's a risk that the used GTRs might not be accounted for. Can you explain what you mean?
Yeah, it said examination of revenue administration reviewed that GTR books that are intended for treasurers' use only were used for collecting trade license. The risk is there is a risk that the GTRs might not be accounted for, and then the response, we acknowledge the risks associated with your finding. Due to scarcity of trade license receipt book, we resort to use of Treasury GTR to ensure the continuity of revenue collection in order to meet our operational and recurrent costs. What happened was the Treasurer's GTR, that is for the Treasurer. When the Treasurer doesn't go to do collections at the market, when collectors go collect, they pay to the Treasurer for banking and then for safekeeping. So in this case, that GTR, that receipt was used to make the collection. So a wrong book was used to do the collections. So that's what the auditors are flagging. And then they said because the GTR that's supposed to be used for that collection was not available, so that's why they used this other one, the wrong one. And then the auditors further comment, the choice of carrying on with this practice, even after acknowledgement of associated risks, indicates management indifferent to the risks of material misstatement to council resources. Is clearly not acceptable. We also disagree to the motivation advanced by management for its decision to use treasurer's receipt for lancing correction as being scarcity. Evidence available to us revealed that normal GTRs were in adequate supply and being used by all but one collector in the collection of lancing. The unexplained choice of allocating the treasurer receipts to a particular collector raised further question about management motives. The response did not address how management intend to resolve the internal control circumvention as such a practice may operate even within a digitalized environment. The auditors further comment was that they confirmed that at the time there were enough receipt books for that collection, and this particular treasury receipt book was not even issued to all the collectors but was issued to a particular collector. So they are just saying then that explanation doesn't address the issue.
So are you saying that somebody, because you said the unexplained choice of allocating the treasurer's receipt to a particular collector raises further questions about management motives.
Yes.
Is this because it is the director of finance that allocates the books to the collectors?
Yeah, if you look at the officer responsible for remedial action, or the officer, they said director of finance. The report is not saying the director of finance, but we said management. We said management. So, yeah.
All right. Further down on that page, there's an issue of $11,999,476, which could not be found in the postings made in the system. Does this mean that payments were actually received and could not be traced, or what does it mean?
Yeah, receipts not posted in the system. The following receipts amounting to 11,999,476 found in the main cashier's cash book, but could not be found in the postings made in the system. Because you know, when they enter this thing in the cash book, they also input them in their system, in their accounting system. Okay. But they found this amount in the cash book, but they are not recorded in the system. Because when they are preparing their financial statement, they take their details, everything from that system. So if this is recorded manually, but is not inputted in the system, that can lead to a risk. So the risk there is a risk that the amount in question are not accounted for and may in effect result in understatement of revenue. And then the management response, contrary to your finding, the highlighted receipts were all duly posted in the system. And the auditors further comment, a system record provided with the management response now reflect the postings. This is then now corrected. We would, however, like to highlight the fact that the version presented now was different to the version submitted during the audit fieldwork, and the latter did not contain the entries in question. So the management is saying they are entered, recorded in the system, posted in the system, and the auditors later saying yes, it was later posted in the system, but the version and the revised one were different.
The version of what? The postings or the cash balance?
This then now corrected. We would, however, like to highlight the fact that the version presented now was different to the, I think the system, you know, when they print the printout from the system, they said the version and then the previous version were different. That is actually with the headings and then the quotes and the like, they said there is a difference in the versions. But it was later posted in the system.
So in a situation like this, where the amounts have been put in the cash book or the receipt book, and it's not in the system, is it possible that the amounts have not been banked?
Yes, maybe in this case they're not talking about banking. In fact, they're talking about how to account for it. It's just like I go and collect money, but any collections made I have a recording in the cash book. And then even if I bank, but the bank deposit and all those details also need to be recorded in the system. Because I need that system to prepare my financial statement. If anybody needs any information, I'm going to get all the information from the system. Right? Meaning, whatever is recorded manually and in the system should tally. It's just like you have it in the system and then you record it manually as well. Then I found it in my manual records, but it's not in the system. So that is the query. So now the substance, they are not saying it has not been banked, but they don't know why it is not in there. And then if you get this printout from the system, in the cash book you can see it. But if you print this report from the system, it is understated by that amount, meaning they are not matching, they are not reconciling. So that's what they say. So they said after it was posted there, but when they printed, at least the formatting and then the versions, they are not the same.
Okay. Further on page 21, there are unpresented deposit slips in the amount of $60,613,728.50 butut. You're saying that it's seen to be posted in the cash book, but there are no deposit slips to confirm if the amounts were actually banked. Can you explain this to us?
Yes, during the audit, 60,613,728 is seen to be posted in the cash book, but there was no deposit slip present to confirm if these amounts were banked. You know, if you collect money, the receipts, and you record it in the cash book. But again, it's either way, most of the time, because like the best practice will be you collect money, you go and deposit. In fact, instead of bringing the physical cash to the council, you go and deposit. And then the deposit slip, that's what you will bring to the cashier or whoever to show that, okay, this amount has been collected and banked, and that deposit slip now will be recorded in the cash book. But what they're saying is a receipt was recorded in the cash book, but there was no evidence that the money has been banked to the bank. Because deposit slips should serve as an evidence that the amount collected has been banked, but that wasn't the case in this year. You see the amount recorded, but there is no evidence that it has been banked. So, yeah.
Sorry, before you proceed on that one, given the fact that you've seen the receipt book, did you reconcile that with the bank statement to cross-check whether, you know, it was also not in the bank statement that they issued to you for review?
Unfortunately, these are regulations, and regulations, there are procedures. From this step, you collect with this, you confirm with this. So auditors, we just look at the procedures. If an amount is collected, it needs to be deposited. You bring the deposit slip, enter it in the bank statement, in the cash book, and then at the end of, because bank statements are at the end of, these are done at the end of every month for your reconciliation also. So if the regulation is saying you collect it, record it in the cash book, because these are daily activities. You record it in the cash book with the deposit slip, because even in the cash book there is a portion for deposit slip number. You record it in that, and then at the end of the month, they just do a monthly bank reconciliation, so that if there is any errors or omission, it will be detected and rectified. So, if auditors find that this amount is recorded in the cash book, but no bank statement, that is a point for query. Whether the bank statements have been requested at the end of the month, that will not still address this issue, because they are just looking at the procedures, and these procedures are laws, they are regulations that need to be followed. And auditors will only review your process whether if there is any gap at any point, they will flag it, so that management will make sure that those things doesn't happen. Because that's why I said they look at potential risks. Because if you have that flexibility, say, okay, the deposit slip is not there, but maybe at the end of the month, let me request for the bank statement, and then you don't address this. You as an auditor, you are failing what you're supposed to do. Because you are there to enhance their system, to make sure that you remind them about the process and procedures. So it cannot address this issue just to say, let me request for the bank statement to see whether it has been distinguished. Yeah.
My reason for asking the question is for you to come to the total sum. I don't have that document before me, the total sum that she highlighted. For you to arrive at that sum total, to say that this is what you find not to be deposited, I believe that you could have cross-reference to find out actually whether it's also not in their bank statements which they might have produced to you during the period, because you might have asked for those statements to view them.
Yes, they can do that. They can do that, but that will not still make the...
I take your point. I understand.
And they are not even saying it's not bank. They are saying deposit slip. Here, the issue is particular about the deposit slip because it's a requirement. So that's why they say no deposit slip was submitted to us to confirm. So they are not even talking about the money has not been banked. If they confirm that, if that was the case, they would say fraud. But that's not. These are just internal processes. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor, can you proceed?
Yes, sure. Further to that, on the second comment that the auditors made, he said we also note variances between postings in the cash book and lodgement to the bank for some collectors. As seen in the table, the variances were both surpluses and deficits. No explanation was provided at the time of writing the query. Does that not mean that there were discrepancies between the amounts that were deposited to the bank?
Are you at the same
page 22? After you stated that.
In fact, I think that most of the time I don't even want to be tempted to answer the question without looking at the. Because normally that will give a full listing, or even this particular issue. If you look at the management response here, they are saying the deposit slips for the all monies bank are available for your review. And then auditors further comment, they say, contrary to the claim in the management response, only total value of 16,583,981 in deposit was traced from records provided. This leaves a remaining balance of 44,229,746 unaccounted. The next 6. And we also noted variance between postings in the cash book and the lodgement to the bank for some collectors. As seen in the table, the variance were both surpluses and deficit. No explanation was provided. So the auditors has even went further, to do a further verification about the bank statement and then the deposit slip variance. Yes.
Okay. It's also on cash books. Review of revenue earning books against the collector's cash book reveals that some cash books are not presented for a review. Enquiry from management reveals that one of the collectors had been dismissed from his appointment, but he's still having this cash book with him. And the table below, who still have cash books.
Yeah, these cash books were not for our review. Enquiry from management reviewed that one of the collectors had been dismissed from the appointment, but he is still having this cash book with him. So details are shown below, and then the implication is there is risk that these cash books contain substantive amount that may be diverted for personal use. And then the management response, they said the cash book for the underlisted collectors are traced and available for your review. The auditors further comment, contrary to the claim in the management response, only one of the cashier's cash book was provided. However, not still by him. The GTR posted in the cash book are detailed in the table below. Out of the 3, management have been submitted, but and that was book also were not attached. So the queries still remain the same.
So from the GTRs that have been listed and the amount collected, by this one, it came to an amount of 1,271,190.
110, yeah.
Does that mean that an amount that has not been accounted for?
Yes, not accounted for.
No. I refer you to page 29 of the management letter in respect of official involvement of the council management or general council. The current CEO said that the canteen handing over notes and information as to the status quo. Can you tell us about the implication of this?
Yes, the implication is a key decision at market without the express approval of the General Council and coordination with management is a clear violation of the Local Government Act.
Could not provide information to the score.